Assassin's Creed is a series that most look at as a franchise with 12 main installments, but if you look closely, you'll realize that it's actually 4 eras instead of 12 separate games. How so? Because not only are some titles built on the exact same engine as their predecessors, most things like narratives, gameplay, and world design are pretty much identical in said eras. So that got me thinking, which one of the 4 is the absolute best? Well, first let me tell you which ones they are. First comes the Auditory Error, which include Assassin's Creed 1, 2, Brotherhood, and Revelations. I know some of you will be real pissed by now because I'm not calling it the Auditory/Altair error. But hey, no matter how good Altair is, Ezio was the one that put the series on the map. Like, really put it on the center stage. And also his story eats up the lion's share of the 4 games. So I figured it's only fair that I call this the Auditory Error. Second is the Kenway Error, which consists of Assassin's Creed 3, Black Flag, and Rogue. Well, sorry Shave fans, but we all gotta agree that the Kenways ruled this generation. Shave was great, he sure was, but not nearly as legendary as the grandfather-grandson duo that changed the course of history. So let's give them the respect they deserve. Third is the Dorian Fry Error, which is formed of Unity and Syndicate. This seems fair because both games saw the protagonists get equal attention. Well, almost equal. And last but not the least, the RPG Error, which consists of, you guessed it right, Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla. The holy trinity that broke Assassin's Creed away from everything Assassin's Creed. But ironically, it's a bittersweet experience in all 3 games. Because on the one hand, aspects like visuals, parts of gameplay, and maps got better than ever. But on the flip side, we saw the lore get dragged into places it had no business being in. I know this opinion isn't universal, but it's still one that resonates with a large portion of the players. And now for the $1,000,000 question. How will we determine which one's the best? I'll first list positives and negatives of each error by comparing them to the other errors, of course. And then at the end of it all, we'll see which ones has more positives, and that will be considered the best. And the aspects I don't talk about, I just consider them as neither good nor bad. There's no other way, as we have to go with statistics rather than intuition in times like this. Also, there'll be no second or third places. I feel they're all special in their own way.
Then why don't you give them all the number 1 spot?
Because then I won't be able to make this video. Now with all that out in the open, let's get to the heart of the topic and start off with the Auditory Error. This could be the most special and memorable for old school Assassin's Creed players, because these 4 games were what got us sucked into the ever so intriguing lore that saw history seamlessly intertwined with fiction. I'll be honest, there were times when I thought Ezio was a real person too, as everyone but the Auditories were real. Such was the impact that the games had. The aspects I won't be listing down below would be the map, parkour, and character designs. They were all just good enough, so for now, let's start with the negatives, as I'm a bad news first kind of guy. Mediocre visuals, comparatively. This isn't exactly a negative, as for the time they were mind-blowing. A decade and a half later, not so much. If the series had ended like 8 years ago, maybe it would have a fighting chance against newer titles. But after seeing spectacles such as Origins and Odyssey, the Auditory Error, despite its authenticity, hardly comes close. Combat. Brotherhood and Revelations were decent in this regard, but Assassin's Creed 1 and 2 have super slow, repetitive, monotonous combat that just isn't good enough anymore. It's a tried and tested formula, but too boring to be a positive in 2022. 23. Stealth. For the longest time, Assassin's Creed stealth was pretty mediocre, which is shocking, considering that the series is based on guys striking from the shadows. No crouch button surely didn't help, and straight up walking behind guys and stabbing them can get old real fast. And now for the positives. The music. This era, and the Ezio trilogy in particular, had what could be the very best Assassin's Creed has to offer in terms of OST. Track after track which were excellent and infinitely memorable, such as Assassin's Creed's theme, the Ezio's Family, Venice Rooftops, Assassin's Creed Revelations' main theme, the Brotherhood Escapes track. It's all timeless. The stories. This was the purest and most untainted era of Assassin's Creed in terms of lore, in my opinion. The plots were so expertly written without too many loopholes or unanswered questions, a definite strong suit for the generation, with the added bonus of perfect endings for both these gentlemen. The characters. Ezio and Altair, both protagonists, have been etched in the annals of Assassin's Creed history as two of the all-time greats because of their personality, storylines, and charisma. But they're not the only timeless characters, because there's Machiavelli, Caterina Sforza, Yusuf Tazim, Cesare Al-Mualim, Rodrigo, La Volpe, Claudia, Paola, Vieri, and only about 100 more. What an absolutely stacked roster. And now let's talk about the Kenway Error. The 3 games we saw during this time were all standouts in their own way. They might just be my favorite. The aspects that I'll be counting out are stealth and parkour. Let's start with the negatives now. Hand-to-hand combat. The one aspect of gameplay that was almost completely copied from the Auditory Error was the combat. It was more of the same with little to no additions in terms of creativity, weapons, or even the animations. It wasn't exactly bad, but the problem here was that it wasn't improved nearly enough to be considered an upgrade. The only good part of this era would be the Tomahawk, but that lasted for only 1 game, so boo. The endings. Not a single protagonist among the 3 got a respectable conclusion. Hell, the endings for 2 of the protagonists was carelessly left up in the air, which is infuriating to say the least. And Edward's last moments were an insult to his legacy, one of the most glaring negatives of the era. And despite my best efforts, those were the only minuses I could find. So now let's head towards the positives. The naval combat. One thing that's absolutely breathtaking in all 3 games is the naval warfare, which, dare I say, is gonna be the gold standard for generations to come. Odyssey and Valhalla were okay compared to this, but 2 of the 3 games were primarily structured around the ocean, so this was always supposed to be a strong suit, and it was. The visuals. All 3 games looked absolutely stunning, with Black Flag being the best, but for some reason this era's visuals are seriously underappreciated because it was gorgeous, had a realistic feel, and felt so vivid. The music. Another aspect of the era that isn't talked about as extensively. Possibly because Assassin's Creed 2's soundtrack was so superior, it kind of overshadowed all that came after. But if you've played these games even once, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. To this day, I listen to many tracks from this era. It was magic. Character designs. Be it Connor, Edward, or even Shay, they all looked absolutely stunning, with Connor's design being my second favorite of all time. Even side characters like Hatham, Achilles, Blackbeard, Liam, and Charles Lee all looked perfect for the part. Characters. Not just the designs, but the characters themselves were terrific. Who could ever forget the oh so charismatic Hatham, the Terminator Connor, the outright scary Captain Ed Thatch, the wicked Charles Lee, or the devil Shay? All these characters are terrifically written and have polarity and depth, a rare combination. Story. This era was the only time in Assassin's Creed when the stories were so complex and layered. Not one of the 3 was just a plain good versus evil bout, but instead it shed light on human nature, political agendas, thought-provoking dialogues, and most importantly, the hardships that entail the life of an assassin or even a Templar for that matter. But that's a lot of positives. And now for the Dorian Fry Error, which according to me is the biggest missed opportunity of the entire series. These 2 games had the potential to be the best of all time, they really did. There was momentum, perfect backstories, the legend was already built, and they were primed to excel. That unfortunately did not happen. But that doesn't mean that this era didn't have some out of this world aspects. However, the stories, characters, designs, combat, and endings were not one of them. But let's get to the negatives now. Music. The 2 worst albums of the entire series came in this era. It's like they were non-existent. Especially in Unity, there wasn't a single memorable track throughout the game. And although Syndicate fared much better, it was still well below average. Bugs and glitches. What a shame it was that Unity was buggy and outright unplayable at launch. Not only did it hamper the momentum severely, it also made a ton of players rage quit the whole damn thing. Syndicate was much better, but to be honest, the kind of damage Unity did, its ripple effect could be felt in Syndicate as well. Now for the positives. Visuals. The visuals of this era went well below radar at the time due to the buggy nature of the game. But the good thing is that now that most issues are fixed, the excellence shines through. Unity's world, although not as massive as newer titles, is still one that looks fascinating and jaw-dropping. And Syndicate isn't too far behind either, a definite strong point. Stealth. This was the time when stealth felt the way it was supposed to be. The long overdue introduction of the crouch button, along with some great stealth mechanics, made you feel more like an assassin than ever. Parkour. This generation also gave us the best parkour of the entire series with unmatched fluidity and style with an abundance of control and creativity involved. They gave the players complete control over the free running. I can say it confidently, this was the best of all time. And now we head towards the ever polarizing RPG era. The weird thing is that this era took from us almost exactly as much as it gave us. But I'd be steering clear of the stories, the parkour, stealth and characters, as these aspects have as many fans as it has haters. But I'd like to give Bayek and Aya special recognition for being two of the best characters of all time, and Origins' story for being outright fantastic. But now let's head over towards the gloomy side, aka the negatives. Lack of fundamental aspects. No matter what reason they give, no matter how logical it may seem, the protagonist of Assassin's Creed not being an assassin, no hood and no hidden blade will never sit well with me. Yes, the logic itself is perfectly fine, but how in the hell can this be okay? The biggest glaring negative, overblown size. Origins was big, Odyssey was huge, but Valhalla? Now that's the definition of too damn much. Even though the overall size of the map itself is smaller than Odyssey, the sheer number of locations to finish is a pain. Yes, 200 to 300 locations is great, but over 1,000? Just count me out, guys. Gods and deities. This is kind of a dividing aspect, because on one hand, it gave us outlandish boss fights, locations and sequences, but on the other hand, it snatched the real essence of Assassin's Creed away. Some people like it, some don't, but for me, it'll always be a minus. And now for the abundant positives. Visuals. Never before has the visual aspect been nailed down to the T like it was in the RPG era. Be it the Ptolemaic Egypt, ancient Greece or 11th century England. It all seems too good to be true. It may not be 100% authentic, but man is it better than my wildest dreams or what. Combat, another major positive for the generation, as all three games got a serious upgrade in terms of combat from the previous games. Everything from the animations, the weapon segregation, upgrading said weapons, it was all mind-blowing. Music. All three games had truly terrific soundtracks in my opinion. I've seen so many people just sit around listening to the main menu music of Origins and Odyssey without actually playing the game. Now that is rare, and even the in-game tracks will blow you away with the perfect blend of nostalgia and the correlated time periods music. Character designs. Every single character from this generation has received great care and attention to detail, be it the primary ones like Bayek and Cassandra or side characters like Meduna Moon, Aya, Aspasia, Basim, Hytham or anyone other for that matter. So with all that being taken into account, now it's time for us to get to the conclusion, where we take account of the positives and negatives and name the winner. The Auditory Error has 3 negatives, namely visuals, stealth and combat, and 3 positives: the music, story and characters. The Kenway Error however fared much better with 2 minuses, the hand-to-hand combat and endings, and a mind-blowing 6 pluses: the naval combat, visuals, character designs, characters, music and stories. The Dorian Fry Error does rather well with only 2 negatives: the music and bug/glitches, and 3 positives, namely the visuals, stealth and parkour. And the RPG Error comes in with 3 thumbs downs, the lack of fundamentals, overblown sizes of worlds, and gods and deities, and 4 thumbs ups, the visuals, combat, music and character designs. So in conclusion, the statistics indicate that the Kenway Error is unequivocally the best era of the entire series. Numbers don't lie and this seems fair to me, but what do you think? Which era according to you is the absolute best? Don't forget to tell me in the comment section down below. This will be my first video of 2023, so I'd like to wish you all a happy new year. So until next time, stay safe, stay strong and stay tuned. It's your boy VZX signing out.